Welcome to Toledo, one of the most remarkable cities in Spain. A city that for centuries had brought together three cultures: Christian, Jewish, and Muslim. Today it captivates visitors not only with its history, but also with its unique atmosphere. Toledo is a city of contrasts, scorching in summer with narrow streets winding steeply uphill. But every climb is rewarded with a view. From every angle, something reminds you of the city's ancient grandeur. It is also one of the oldest cities in Spain, the former capital of the Kingdom of Castile, and for centuries the seat of the Archbishop of Spain, a spiritual and intellectual center of the country. Toledo has inspired artists, scholars, and rulers alike. It was here that Greco lived and painted, the artist who gave Toledo its immortal face. This is a city best discovered on foot, slowly, with pauses in the shade, uncovering its many layers like reading history carved in stone. That's why we've prepared for you two unique complementary walking tours. Intense, full of turns, steps, and surprises. A perfect way to truly get to know the city. This film is available in two language versions: Polish marked with a yellow ribbon and English marked with a blue one. It's also available in other languages with automatic dubbing. And if you enjoy traveling with us, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next destinations we uncover step by step. Why does Toledo captivate so many? Find out for yourself. Join us for the first of our walks. Welcome to Toledo, the city of three cultures. Toledo, a city set in the very heart of Spain. Just about 45 miles south of Madrid. Perched on a rocky hill almost entirely encircled by the Tagus River, it has guarded its history and its secrets for centuries. Its name, Toletum, dates back to Roman times, derived from a word meaning a fortified hill above the river. And indeed, even then it was a stronghold, hard to conquer, yet full of spirit and knowledge. According to legend, it was Hercules himself who founded Toledo. He is said to have built a tower here, where he hid the world's greatest secrets. It's a symbolic tale, because over the centuries, Toledo truly became a place where strength, wisdom, and spirit met. It is one of the oldest cities in Spain. Its origins reach back to the Roman era, but its true golden age came in the Middle Ages, when it became the capital of the Kingdom of Castile. Lying at the crossroads of cultures, Toledo became a place where the three great religions of the Mediterranean world, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, coexisted for centuries. Here, Christian kings ruled in the shadow of ancient mosques. Jewish scholars translated Arabic works into Latin, and artists created a shared language of art and faith. From this meeting was born the city's extraordinary identity, the Toledan spirit, a city of three cultures, where East met West and reason met faith. Today, Toledo still carries that timeless soul. Summers here are hot, the stone walls soak up the sun and the narrow streets twist sleepily uphill. But the climb is always worth it. Around almost every corner, a breathtaking panorama unfolds before your eyes. This is Toledo, the city of strength, wisdom, and three cultures. Today our walk through Toledo begins in the very heart of the city, at a square surrounded by Renaissance facades where both the town hall and the cathedral stand, Plaza del Ayuntamiento. The town hall dates back to the 16th century and was designed by the royal architect Juan de Herrera, known for its distinctive twin towers and perfectly symmetrical facade. Its location was no accident. It was built right beside the Archbishop's Palace and directly facing the cathedral to symbolize the balance between secular and ecclesiastical power. From the town hall windows you can see the cathedral facade, a reminder that civic life in Toledo always faces its spiritual heart. For centuries this has been the site of public ceremonies, processions, and official proclamations. Even today, during festivals such as Corpus Christi, the square fills with colorful decorations and giant papier-mâché figures, lively characters representing heroes and saints from the city's rich history. Their presence gives this place a unique, almost theatrical atmosphere, where the solemnity of history blends with the joyful spirit of Spanish celebration. Just a few steps from the town hall rises the Archbishop's Palace. Built in stages, it combines Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque elements, shaped by centuries of modifications. Its granite facade, adorned with Ionic columns and a Doric frieze, impresses with its elegance, while the 17th century iron balcony, depicting nymphs supporting the coat of arms of Cardinal Tavera, adds a distinctive artistic touch. Since the 13th century, the palace has been the official residence of the archbishops, connected to the cathedral by a covered passageway that allows direct access between these two monumental buildings. And now let's move on to the Cathedral of St. Mary. It is the most important monument in Toledo and one of the largest Gothic churches in all of Spain. Construction began in 1226, during the reign of King Ferdinand III, on the site of a former mosque, which itself had been built upon the remains of even earlier Visigothic church. Thus, in one place, three eras and three cultures meet, those that coexisted in Toledo for centuries. The Cathedral of Toledo, like the one in Burgos, is considered the purest example of Spanish Gothic architecture, inspired by the great French cathedrals of Paris and Rheims. Its construction lasted more than 2 centuries, with successive generations of masters adding new elements, from austere Gothic naves to richly decorated chapels and Renaissance portals. The cathedral became not only a place of worship, but also a symbol of the rebirth of the Christian kingdom after the Reconquista, a sign that Toledo had once again become the spiritual capital of Spain. The first element that catches the eye is the soaring tower with its square base, crowned by a Gothic spire and an octagonal structure filled with pinnacles and buttresses. It rises about 300 feet high. and its architecture blends Gothic style with mudéjar elements, typical of Castilian art of that period. The tower consists of 5 levels. The lowest houses the cathedral treasury. Above it once were the bell ringer's residence and a small prison for clergy. And the top 2 levels served as the belfry. The original design called for the construction of 2 twin towers, but as often happened in Gothic architecture, only one was built. In a place of the second, a Mozarabic-style chapel was erected, topped with a Baroque dome designed by Jorge Manuel Theotokopoulos, the son of the former painter El Greco. This very detail gives the cathedral's southern side its slightly asymmetrical yet remarkably distinctive appearance. The main facade facing Plaza del Ayuntamiento impresses with its grandeur and richness of sculpture. It features 3 portals, each with symbolic meaning and astonishingly detailed Gothic craftsmanship. At the center of the facade stands the Puerta del Perdón, the Gate of Forgiveness, opened only during the most important ceremonies. Its name refers to the old custom of granting indulgences to penitents who entered through this very gate. On the right rises the Puerta del Juicio Final, or Gate of the Last Judgment, the oldest of the 3. Its rich sculptural decoration depicts a dizzy scene: Christ, the Man of Sorrows, the Virgin Mary, and Saint John, and below the resurrection of the dead and the damned, accompanied by symbolic images of the sun and moon. On the left is the Puerta del Infierno, the Gate of Hell, also known as the Gate of the Tower and Palms, since in earlier times the Palm Sunday procession would pass through it. Above the main portal is a beautifully carved tympanum, showing the Virgin Mary placing a chasuble on Saint Ildefonso, the patron saint of Toledo, surrounded by 6 finely sculpted Gothic archivolts. On the side facades are several other equally elaborate portals. Particularly striking is the south facade, the Puerta de los Leones, or Gate of the Lions. Built in the late 15th century, a magnificent example of Flemish Gothic style. Above its triple archivolt is a depiction of the Assumption of Mary, surrounded by sculptures of apostle and biblical figures, intricately woven into the portal's decoration. At the entrance stand 6 stone lions, which for centuries have guarded the way into the cathedral. We can't show you the interior, but once inside you'll see its breathtaking space. Tall light-filled naves illuminated by 15th century stained glass. Along the sides are 22 chapels, adorned with sculptures and ornate iron grilles. At the center rises the splendid main altar, while the treasury houses the famous gold and silver monstrance from the 15th century, one of the greatest masterpieces of Spanish goldsmithing. The sense of peace is completed by the adjoining cloisters, full of Gothic harmony and calm. After leaving the cathedral, let's continue our walk toward the origins of the city, to discover the Caves of Hercules, one of the most mysterious places in Toledo. They lie beneath a building that once housed the Church of San Gines, which stood here until 1841. These underground chambers date back to Roman times, probably built in the second half of the 1st century as a water reservoir, supplied by an aqueduct that crossed the river Tagus. Over the centuries, the site changed its form and purpose. During the Visigothic period, there may have been a church here, later a mosque, and from the 12th century, once again a Christian temple. Over time, the structure fell into ruin and was finally abandoned and demolished in the 18th century. Part of the entrance wall still remains with fragment of Visigothic reliefs, a quiet trace where Toledo's history meets legend. According to tradition, it was Hercules himself who founded Toledo and hid treasures and magical books in the city's underground, and the caves of Hercules were said to be the entrance to a secret chamber guarded by the spirits of the past. Let's move on, because traces of Roman Toledo don't end here. Just a few steps away, archaeologists uncovered Roman baths dating from the 1st–2nd century AD. Hidden beneath Plaza Amador de los Rios, they preserve fragments of rooms with a hippocaust heating system, water channels and remains of the caldarium, the hot bathing hall heated from below. It's a fascinating testament to the Roman presence in Toledo, which even then was a well-developed and significant center on the map of the empire. Let's keep walking and stop at the Church of San Ildefonso, also known as the Jesuit Church, one of the most beautiful Baroque temples in Toledo. Construction began in 1629 on the site of the house where, according to tradition, Saint Ildefonso, Archbishop of Toledo in the 7th century, was born. The church was built by the Jesuits, and its design was inspired by Il Gesù in Rome, the model of Counter-Reformation architecture. Its monumental facade and dome symbolize the power of the order during the height of the Spanish Baroque. Saint Ildefonso himself was one of the greatest theologians of Visigothic Spain, author of theses on the Virgin Mary and defender of her perpetual virginity. Legend says that the Virgin Mary appeared to him here and placed a chasuble on his shoulders as a sign of her grace, a miracle that forever linked his name with the history of Toledo. Inside, don't miss the main altar depicting this miraculous vision, one of the city's finest Baroque works. And if you have a moment, climb up to the church terrace. From there, you'll enjoy one of the most stunning panoramic views of Toledo. And almost next door stands the Museo de los Concilios y la Cultura Visigota. Housed in the former church of San Roman, one of the most remarkable monuments in Toledo. The church was built in the 12th century and was Christian from the very beginning, though its appearance might be deceiving. It is a magnificent example of the Mudehar style, Christian architecture created by Muslim craftsmen. That's why you will see characteristic horseshoe arches, brick ornaments, and geometric decorations that echo the spirit of Islamic art. Inside, original frescoes from the period have been preserved, and it was here in the 13th century that Alfonso X the Wise was crowned King of Castile, one of the greatest monarchs of medieval Spain. Today, the museum is dedicated to Visigothic culture, recalling the time when Toledo was the capital of the Visigothic kingdom, 6th–8th centuries. Its collection includes stone reliefs, decorative capitals, crosses, and inscriptions, tangible traces of the ancient civilization that shaped the Christian roots of Spain. Just a few minutes walk away, we reach the facade of the Real Colegio de Doncellas Nobles, one of the oldest women's colleges in Spain. Founded in 1551 by Archbishop Juan Martin Siliceo, its mission was to educate young women of noble birth and virtuous character. The building stands out for its austere Renaissance facade, reflecting the spirit of the Counter-Reformation, though in some details, especially around the portal and window decorations, you can spot subtle influences of the Plateresque style, known for its intricate, jewelry-like ornamentation. Inside is an elegant courtyard with cloisters and a chapel decorated with works of the Toledan school. For centuries, the college served both education and charitable roles, offering care and dowries to poor but noble girls. Continuing our walk, we arrive at one of Toledo's most impressive monuments, the Monastery de San Juan de los Reyes, or Monastery of Saint John of the Kings. It was founded by the Catholic monarchs Isabel of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon, in thanksgiving for their victory at the Battle of Toro in 1476, a triumph that strengthened their rule and marked the beginning of Spain's unification. Although the battle took place far from here, in northern Castile, Toledo was chosen as the site of the foundation. Isabella's choice was no coincidence. Toledo was the spiritual capital of Spain, the former seat of Visigothic kings and archbishops, a center of religion and power. For the queen, the city symbolized unity and faith, the forces that would reunite the kingdom after centuries of division. Thus, the monastery was meant not only to commemorate a military victory, but also to stand as a visible sign of divine favor over their reign. The building is a masterpiece of Isabelline Gothic, combining grandeur with refined detail. Throughout its decorations, one can spot the intertwined initials Y and F, symbols of the inseparable union between Isabel and Fernando. They are often accompanied by the royal motto, Tanto monta, monta tanto Isabel como Fernando. It comes to the same, Isabella or Ferdinand. The phrase emphasized their equal power and joint rule over the United Kingdom. Inside, the monastery dazzles with its slender vaults and rich heraldic decoration. Its true jewel is the two-story cloister. The lower level built of stone with intricately carved arches and lush vegetal motifs, and the upper lighter and brighter, partly made of wood with details reminiscent of the Mudéjar style. Not everything, however, has survived untouched. During the Napoleonic Wars in the early 19th century, the monastery was heavily damaged by French troops. Its roof was burned, interiors destroyed, and part of the cloisters ruined. It wasn't until the 20th century that it regained its former splendor through careful restoration. The monastery's most distinctive feature, though, is the chains hanging on its facade. Said to come from Christian captives freed from Muslim imprisonment after the conquest of Granada in 1492. Hanging them on the walls symbolize the liberation of Spain from Moorish rule and the triumph of the Christian faith. The monastery of St. John of the Kings remains one of the most beautiful testaments to the power and devotion of the Catholic monarchs, and one of the most symbolic landmarks in all of Toledo. Before reaching our next destination, the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca, we'll take a short detour to see the remarkable Puerta del Cambrón, one of Toledo's former city gates that once led into the Jewish quarter. Its current Renaissance form dates back to the 16th century, built on the site of an earlier Moorish structure. The gate's name comes from the thorny cambron shrub that grew here centuries ago. From this spot there is a beautiful view of the Tagus Valley and the western part of the city. Let's now head downhill toward the Puente de San Martín, San Martin's Bridge, one of Toledo's most recognizable landmarks. Built in the 14th century, it consists of 5 stone arches, the largest spanning about 130 feet, which made it one of the longest bridges in the world at the time. According to legend, the day before its inauguration, the architect realized in horror that he had made a serious miscalculation. The bridge would collapse once the supports were removed. In despair, he confessed to his wife, who that very night secretly set fire to the scaffolding, ensuring the unfinished structure would burn. Her courageous act saved her husband's honor, and the bridge was rebuilt, this time without errors, remaining perfectly solid and standing proudly over the Tagus to this day. Pay attention to the massive gate tower, crowned with the imperial coats of arms of Spain, a symbol of Emperor Charles V's might. On each side are sculptures of 2 seated kings, Reyes sedentes, emphasizing Toledo's royal character as the former capital of Castile and a city of coronations. These heraldic decorations remind us that the bridge served not only a defensive purpose, but also a ceremonial one, welcoming visitors to one of the most important cities of the Spanish kingdom. Today, this place offers a modern attraction as well, Fly Toledo, one of the longest urban zip lines in Europe. Sliding along a steel cable over the Tagus River, you can admire a breathtaking view of the medieval St. Martin's Bridge and the panorama of the old city. It's a unique blend of history, adventure, and excitement, right in the heart of Toledo. Let's move on. We return to our route, and ahead of us stands the Synagogue of Santa Maria la Blanca, one of the most remarkable places in Toledo. Although it bears a Christian name today, it was originally built at the end of the 12th century as a Jewish synagogue and is probably the oldest surviving one in Europe. Its interior impresses with a unique blend of styles, Jewish, Christian and Arab. The whole is divided into 5 aisles, separated by 32 columns that create a rhythmic, almost musical sense of space. Each column is topped with a plaster capital, hand-carved using reeds instead of molds, which makes no two capitals exactly alike. They vary in size and shape, highlighting the authentic handcrafted character of the building. Above them rises a wooden coffered ceiling, intricately decorated in the mudehar style, resembling an upturned ship's hull. Its geometric patterns and dark beams contrast beautifully with the white walls, giving the interior both depth and harmony. It's a perfect example of mudehar art, in which Muslim craftsmen created works for Christians and Jews, blending Eastern ornamentation with Western structure. Around 1405, the synagogue was consecrated as a Christian church, receiving the name Santa Maria la Blanca, Saint Mary the White. In the centuries that followed, the building served many purposes, as a storehouse, an armory, and even military barracks, which led to partial damage to its interior. It wasn't until the 19th century that restoration work began, bringing back much of its former splendor. Today, Santa Maria la Blanca functions as a museum. We're now walking through the very heart of the old Jewish quarter, La Juderia, one of the most atmospheric parts of Toledo, where the narrow, stone-paved streets still seem to echo with ancient prayers and conversation in Ladino, the language of the Spanish Jews. Let's head now to another, no less remarkable synagogue, El Tránsito. It was built in the 14th century by Samuel Alevi, treasurer to King Peter I the Cruel. Its interior is a masterpiece of ornamentation. Intricately carved stuccos with Hebrew inscriptions, floral motifs, and arabesques reminiscent of the decoration of the Alhambra in Granada. Particularly striking is the wooden ceiling in the mudehar style, with its incredibly complex geometric structure. The coffered beams, adorned with fine patterns, form a precise design that resembles stars, a symbol of heaven and divine order. This is where the Sephardic Museum is located today, a place that tells the story of the Spanish Jews, their culture, traditions, and tragic fate after the expulsion from Spain in 1492. El Tránsito is not only an architectural monument, but also a memorial site, a testimony to the rich, though interrupted presence of the Jewish community in Toledo. Let's continue toward the Museo del Greco, situated just a few steps from the El Tránsito Synagogue. This is a special place dedicated to one of the greatest artists of the Renaissance, Domenikos Theotokopoulos, known to the world as El Greco, meaning the Greek. Although he was born on Crete, it was Toledo that he found his spiritual home and created his most important works. Despite spending most of his life here, he never received the recognition he truly deserved. His style, full of drama, elongated figures, and almost supernatural light, was considered too bold and unsettling for his contemporaries. Only centuries later was his genius and spiritual depth finally appreciated. And today, El Greco is regarded as one of the greatest painters in the history of Spain. The museum displays both his paintings and a reconstruction of a period house, complete with a courtyard, a painting studio and a collection of 16th century furniture. Among the most famous works exhibited here is the painting View of Toledo, Vista de Toledo, one of the first works in history devoted entirely to the landscape of a city. Although the artist did not reproduce the city's topography with precision, he painted Toledo as he felt it. Mystical, shrouded in clouds, suspended between earth and heaven. Leaving the El Greco Museum, we once again wander through the narrow, stone-paved streets of Toledo. Here, in the very city that became his home and source of inspiration, lies another place inseparably linked to his art. The Church of Santo Tomé. If the museum allows us to explore El Greco's spiritual world, his style, sensitivity and mystical vision of Toledo, then it is here that we can see his most famous masterpiece, the very essence of everything that made him a truly exceptional artist. Inside this modest church is the painting that immortalized El Greco forever, the burial of the Count of Orgaza. Painted in 1586 at the request of the local parish priest, it illustrates the legend of the nobleman Don Gonzalo Ruiz de Toledo, whose virtuous life was rewarded by a miracle. At his funeral, Saint Stephen and Saint Augustine descended from heaven to place his body in the tomb. The spiritual tension between heaven and earth became El Greco's hallmark, visible in his landscapes and portraits alike. Although most visitors come here to see El Greco's masterpiece, the Church of Santo Tomé itself also holds traces of history. Built on the site of a former mosque, it has preserved part of its Mudéjar-style tower, a reminder of the time when Toledo was the city of three religions. Let's move on to the Church of El Salvador. This is a truly special place, for it mirrors the entire history of Toledo like a reflection in a mirror. Built on the foundations of Visigothic temple, later transformed into a mosque, and finally into a Christian church. From the outside it appears modest, but inside it fascinates with the harmony of styles, Romanesque, Gothic and Mudéjar. Its tower, once a minaret, still recalls the city's Muslim heritage. You can even climb it, and from the top there opens another enchanting view of Toledo. The rooftops of old houses, church towers, and the quiet winding streets below. Inside El Salvador, fragments of arches and columns from the earliest Christian period have been preserved. In the crypts beneath, archaeologists discovered tombs of Toledo's aristocracy from the 11th and 12th centuries, silent witness to bygone eras. It is here in the Church of El Salvador that we conclude our journey through the spiritual heart of Toledo. In this temple, where styles and epochs intertwine from Visigothic foundation through mosque walls to Christian vaults, the entire history of the city is reflected like in a mirror. But our walk has one more sweet ending. Just a few steps from here, in the same part of Toledo, stands the famous School of Translators, a place that made the city renowned across medieval Europe. It was here that Christian, Jews, and Arabs worked side by side, translating the works of ancient philosophers, physicians, and scholars. Thanks to their efforts, Toledo became a city of knowledge and culture dialogue, a bridge between East and West. Right next to the school, on Plaza de San Andreas, stands a small convent, Parroquia de San Andreas y San Cipriano, where for centuries the nuns have been baking the famous Toledan almond cookies. Toledo has been renowned for its almond delicacies for centuries. And not by chance. The almond tree, introduced here by the Arabs in the Middle Ages, thrived perfectly in the Castile's dry, warm climate. Its fruits were used not only for almond oils and milks, but also for sweet confections. Over time, it was the religious orders, especially women's convents, that became the guardians of this culinary tradition. Today you can taste their pastries yourself and discover the secret flavor of Toledo. Our walk through Toledo is coming to an end. We began at the cathedral, the heart of the city, and step by step uncover its spiritual and artistic soul. We've journeyed through a city where history intertwines with legend, where stone and light still carry the echoes of past centuries. But this isn't the end of our adventure. It's only half of Toledo that we've shared with you today. In our next walk, we'll cross to the other side of the city to discover another face of Toledo, full of views, light, and places that will complete this extraordinary journey through time and culture. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to continue this journey with us, subscribe to the channel and join us again. Hasta pronto en Toledo. See you soon in Toledo.